Greetings, Iain from RTO here. Hope you're all well. Welcome to another one-off album review, and today we're going to do an album that I have spoken about, I think, with Richard McCook, and it is Racey and their one-off album Smash and Grab. Racey were formed in 1976, Weston-super-Mare in Somerset, England, by Clive Wilson and Phil Thurston. They achieved success in the late 70s and early 80s with certain singles, and then one of the songs on the album was rehashed, reworked, and come out and became an international hit all over the world. So the lineup of Racey were Richard Gower on vocals, keyboards, piano and guitar, Phil Thurston guitar and vocals, Pete Miller on vocals and bass, and Clive Wilson on the drums. Around the local pub circuit round Weston-super-Mare, they became quite popular. And then they came to the attention of record guru Mickey Most of Rack Records, and of course he signed them up. And Smash and Grab, the album, the hits were either written and or produced by Mike Chapman and Nicky Chin. So they eventually split up in 1985. They did get back together in 1990. For a short while, but sadly Pete Miller, the bass player, died of cancer. They did come back again in 2021 to release a single, but it sort of disappeared without a trace. Because it didn't even register anywhere in the world. So there we are. So the album Smash and Grab came out in September of 1979. It was produced by Chapman, Chin, and Mickey Most was involved as an executive type producer, I think. So here we go. First track on here is a track called Love's a Riot. It's very, very cheesy, proper bubblegum pop, but you love it because it's bubblegum pop. You know, when I heard this verse, I thought it was brilliant. I look at it now and go, "Ooh, it is cheesy," but hey, it's part of my childhood. So there you go. Then we have a track called Such a Night. This sounds a lot like Some Girls, but it's okay. It is actually one of the good deep cut tracks on this album. There's such thing as a deep cut track on this album. There's a party going on. Now, this one is really good. It's quite a serious song for Racey. It's got some nice singing. The harmonies are really good on that track. Then we have a track called Lay Your Cards on the Table. I quite like this one. Very rock and roll, bubblegum sort of stuff. Lots of boppies in it, and there's nothing wrong with this. You know, I like this sort of thing. I've got quite an affection for that song. Then we get She's a Winner. It's got that typical sort of mid-70s drum sound on it. You know, you got with Mud and Rubettes, all them sort of bands. I like that. It's got some nice organ on this as well. Quite a little good track. Then we get one of the big hits from this album, Some Girls. Love the piano. The harmonies are great. It's just rock and roll harmonies. Tell who wrote it. It's got it written all over it. It's a brilliant song, and I remember this, and I went and brought it, like most idiots did. There's a lot of us out there that really love that track. And that was the last track on side one. Side two opens up with probably my favourite track by Racey. It's the one with the silly dance, Lay Your Love on Me. I love this. I love that little bit of cheesy keyboard. I just love it. It's a classic song. Then we get a track called Kitty. Now you should recognise this one, because it was a huge hit for Tony Basil when they reworded it in 1981. There's Mickey, which was a huge hit. Number 4 in the UK, the Euro 100 chart 17, Ireland 14. Sold a bucket full. Very successful. Was number 1 in Australia, Canada, and the US. This single on its own, gold in Australia, 2 times platinum in Canada, gold here in the UK, and platinum in America. So they took this song Kitty, turned it into Mickey, and it became a huge hit. Do I like? I like both versions, I must admit. Okay, then we get Rah Stateway. Not the best thing on here. One of the tracks I don't like. Then we get Boy Oh Boy, which was another single. Didn't do as well as Some Girls and Lay Your Love on Me, but it's great. What I like about this, it's very 60s. You remember Del Shannon's Runaway, that keyboard. It's got a very similar sounding keyboard. And then we get probably the worst album track I've ever heard. Or one of them. We Are Racey. Oh dear, how cheesy. But there you go. It's not the best track on the album. So this album, when it was released, didn't chart. It didn't get into the charts here in the UK. It made number 5, in Australia, 15 in Austria, Germany 29, New Zealand it got to number 10, and Sweden 32. But it just sort of fizzled out here as an album. But when it came to the singles, they were much successful. Lay Your Love on Me got to number 3 here in the UK, but it was top 10 all over Europe. Got to number 1 in Australia and New Zealand. They were very popular down there. Some Girls, again, top 10 hit all over Europe. Again, a number 1 in Australia, got to number 2 here in the UK. Number 1 in New Zealand and South Africa. Boy Oh Boy, the other single off the album, didn't do as well in the UK. Got to 22, 12 in Australia, but number 1 in Denmark, number 2 in South Africa and Sweden. Now, the single Lay Your Love on Me was a silver single in Denmark. Silver in Some Girls were silver as well. So they were pretty hot in Denmark. So it's amazing, that a band from Britain didn't do well in Britain. Anyway, a as far as this album goes, I think it's an album. I mean, I do like it. It's a guilty pleasure for me because it was part of my growing up. I mean, when this came out, how old would I have been? What, 11? About 11, 12. And I loved Mud and all them bands, so I was going to like this because it was from the same stable, really. It's just ironic that one of the songs on here was a big hit for someone else and not them. So I'm going to give this album an RTO ranking of 7 out of 10 because it's a fun album and I do like listening to it. So that about wraps up this week on RTO. Once again, thank you very much for your